Game was the Monday night game, Saints and Panthers. Looking at the scorecard, it looks like it was a lot closer than it was, but it felt like the Saints really honed in on their defense and why their defense has been good for what feels like the last decade and a half.
Yeah.
Carrying it over with Dennis Allen, and really liked how they played on defense. Really forming it up. Derek Carr, I think he played relatively well. I think with Derek Carr that I've noticed and why he's maybe not in the same echelons as some of these other guys, it seemed like we talk about Russell Wilson being gun shy. Well, Derek Carr is gun happy. He's like, it seems like he makes his first read, he makes his second read, chucks it down the field.
Yeah.
And that's awesome when he hits them and they connect, because that's when he throws for 400 yards and throws 3 touchdowns. But I felt like in this game, probably should have relied heavily more on like Michael Thomas than someone like Chris Olave, who did have a good game, and not taking anything away from him. Derek Carr, I think he should focus more on those intermediary routes.
Yeah.
And I feel like they'll be better. And then for the Panthers, defense played pretty well. I like what I saw from Brian Burns, and overall just their team as a whole, their unit. And then for their offense, I'm not going to sit here and rip on Bryce Young, because I look at his receiver core, and I look at his personnel. His number one receiver is Hayden Hurst.
Mm-hmm.
No disrespect to Hayden Hurst. He's a fine tight end, starting tight end, capable. They got to get him some talent. They should have kept DJ Moore and somehow, found a way to get him without giving up their number one receiver. Because right now their offense is just pretty brutal to watch, to be honest.
Yeah, their offense is brutal to watch, and my thing is like, why are we can we just sacrifice Andy Dalton this season? Like, why are we sacrificing Bryce Young with a bad offensive line, Adam Thielen, who he targeted 5 times in his first few drives there, because he's his only receiver? And then the past few years, everyone's been like, oh, is this the year Adam Thielen falls off? Is this the year? Well, it's like, we can't even judge it fairly, because now he is a second or third receiver on a team getting number one receiver coverage. And then you have mentioned Hayden Hurst on that team. The running game is decent, but like, I felt like this is a year where it's like, can we just sit Bryce Young, teach him how to be a professional with Andy Dalton? I get he has to go through those growing pains, but don't sacrifice it to the point where he's going to be taking shots in the pocket because he can't find guys, where he's going to have to scramble. So I felt like the Panthers, it's not really fair to Bryce Young this year with the team they put around him, especially since they chose to go with Frank Reich for some reason as their head coach, even though he didn't prove anything in Indianapolis and he was the offensive coordinator, but Doug Peterson was the guy calling the shots. So no idea why they picked him to be the head coach. And then for the Saints, you go in, it's a tough environment on the road. This is a team that's kind of dominated you in the past, with Derek Carr trying to still build a rapport. You can see he's not quite on the same page as with his receivers yet. So I think the Saints will continue to get better, but I do want to see more from Derek Carr. And I think it's fine that you're winning these games where your defense dominates earlier in the season. And I'm fine if it takes until week 6 or 7 for their offense to get going. And then we'll see if Alvin Kamara can come back and then look a little bit more like himself than he has the past few years. I just want him to be like that pass catching back, not necessarily a dynamic running back, but just a solid receiver on third down. Let's get the ball to Michael Thomas a little bit more. And then their offense is really just, you mentioned it, one-on-one downfield. There's not too much explosivity though outside of bombing it to Chris Olave. So let's get a little bit more creative with the play design here, so we're not just relying on Derek Carr going one-on-one down the sideline. But overall, solid game for the Saints. Good win there. You keep pace with the Atlanta Falcons. I'm looking forward to that matchup, and I'm looking forward to also seeing how all 3 of the top teams in that division match up with each other in the Bucs, Falcons, and Saints.